All right, come on in and join me. We're going to be talking about how to go from 0 to 20 Airbnbs, all without buying property. So excited to chat about that. Thank you all for joining me. Yes, we're going to be talking about how to go from 0 to 20 Airbnbs without buying property first. So come on in. Where is everyone from? Drop it in the chat, in the comments. Hi, Net4Bess. Hi, can't pronounce that one. Natar Banya. Hello, Chantel. Hi, bitch, I'm budgeting. I love your screen name. Hello, Terrell. Kripona Palani. It's going so fast. I'm excited that you joined Push to Purpose Homes. Yes. And okay, you're from New York, Atlanta. Where is everyone else from? Mad Hatter. Hey. Shaquana Herbert. Hey. I can't read your name, Dallas, but I'm glad you're here. I'm getting so much better at reading screen names. Like, it was really bad before. Okay, we have Orlando in the house, another New Yorker. I'm actually originally from New York. A lot of people don't know that. I was born in New York. I was actually born in the Bronx and grew up in the Bronx and then Westchester, and then we moved to Ghana. And then that's a whole nother story. But right before where I am now, I lived in the DC area since college. Okay, so all right, so hey guys, thank you all so much for joining. If you don't know who I am, my name is nanaalicenyarko, and I teach people how to start an Airbnb with or without buying property, because I know for a lot of people, some people, have the ability to buy property. I'm a huge fan of buying real estate because, it's a great way to build wealth. It's a great way to increase your income if you're using it as rental property, but not everyone can do that right now, right? And so for a lot of people, because you're not able to do that right now, you may be kind of sitting on the sidelines when you see all these people making money with Airbnb and short-term rentals because the industry is booming right now, but you're like, okay, well, how do I actually get started? How do I get into it? So that's why I made my program, the BNB from Scratch method, to actually teach people how to start without buying property. And I also have my ebook bundle, which is my Airbnb ebook and my travel nurse hosting ebook, which shows you how to do that as well. So, but I created those because I have so many people who are like, I want to do Airbnb, but I don't really know how to get into this. How do I get started? So that is why I created those programs. So today, what I wanted to do was first I want to find out where is everyone, like I know this is where you all are from, but do you actually want to host in your local area? Drop that in the comments. Oh, you're a nurse. That's awesome. Yeah, I love nurses. Like I was hosting travel nurses before the pandemic started, but in the last year I hosted a lot more. And I love hosting travel nurses. I have a whole course on that as well. I'm kind of a course junkie, and I'm like, if I learn something and I know it does well, I want to show people how to do it as well. So for any of those courses, you can get them by clicking the link in my bio. But yeah, what I want to know is do you guys want to host in your local city, like where you live, or do you want to host somewhere else? Drop that in the chat. So while people are dropping that, what I want to share is like how I was able to, at one point I was hosting 20 Airbnbs, right? And with those 20 Airbnbs, I didn't buy any property for that, right? The last time I bought property was like in 2000, the early 2000s, so, or mid 2000s, whatever you want to call them. So when I started my Airbnb journey, I did not buy any property, right? So the first one, I actually started with what I tell people to do all the time, start with what you have. So I started with my apartment. I was living in an apartment in the city, and whenever I would travel, whether it was for work or for fun, I would put my place on Airbnb, like for the weekend or for the week, however long I was gone. This is back in 2014. So Airbnb, it was not as big as it is now, but I was just like, hey, I want to make some money while I'm away, because Airbnb, the way it works is they will pay you the day after somebody checks into your property. So let's say someone checks in on a Friday, they're going to check, Airbnb is going to deposit money into your bank account the next day, so on Saturday. So like I would be on vacation or I'd be away for work, and I would get a deposit into my account just for having these people in my place. And I know it's crazy for a lot of people. I understand a lot of people don't want to do that, but it worked for me. So that's how I got started. And then eventually the next way I teach people is by doing rental arbitrage. I call it master leasing, but a lot of people call it rental arbitrage. And so this is when you go out and you lease a property with the landlord's permission. You use it for short-term rentals. So you use it for Airbnb. I feel like the light is acting kind of funny. Let's see. Yeah, you use it for Airbnb. So that is what I did. I went out and I had a met with a landlord, and he was so dope. He was another black man who, like, this is in the DMV area. He owns several buildings, like rental buildings, and he gave me so much game. And really, I just ended up having a great business relationship with him, to the point where he gave me multiple apartments. And that's the beauty of working with landlords and getting their permission and being on the up and up, because if you do well, and you know, they're looking for someone to pay their mortgage. Like, that is what they want. They want someone who's going to pay the rent so they can pay their mortgage and have whatever profit it is that they may or may not have. So in doing the right thing and really making sure that you're not doing this under the radar, you kind of get in on a lease, but you never tell them that you're using it for Airbnb, it's going to come back to bite you in the butt. And when you're upfront with the landlord, like I said, like, you're growing a business relationship. So that can lead to more units if you want to scale and you want to have multiple Airbnbs. All of this is why you want to make sure you're doing things and setting things up the right way once you get started. Okay, before I move on, let me check some of the comments. Oh, that was a lot of talking without breathing. I just did. Okay, so some of you want to host where you live, somewhere else. Connecticut is so little. Okay. Well, the thing is, you would be surprised, especially in the last year. Like, it's kind of maybe shifting a little bit, but a lot more people want to host or want to go travel to more remote locations or more suburban locations. Like, not everybody and their mother wants to be in the major cities for obvious reasons with everything going on, right? So I always say, like, you have to, don't go based off of just kind of what you think, especially if you've been living in that city, in that town for a while. You're like, who the heck wants to come here? But you'd be surprised. Someone who's never really been to your area might be like, oh, I want to go there because I want to have this quaint experience, or I want to go there because they have a really cool random museum I heard about, or I want to go there because I'm road tripping across the country and that matches where I need to go and they've got a cute little diner. Like, you would be so surprised the reason why people will come to your smaller city. And on top of that, there's also like people who are doing staycations, especially now. Like, who knows what's going on with COVID and the ups and downs. So people may or may not travel to like their usual destinations. Maybe you used to do an annual trip to like the heart of LA, but you're not doing that right now, but you want to get out of your house. So you are just going to the town next door because you just want to be away, right? And then, like I said, a lot of people are road tripping right now. So they may be going up and down the East Coast, and maybe they started in Maine, right? And they make a stop in Connecticut. So you really want to make sure that you're doing your research before you kind of completely write off your local area. Okay, so Brooklyn, that's cool. I'm just asking people where they want to host, whether they want to host in their local area or if they want to host, somewhere else. How do you find people who do that? So I think you may mean maybe landlords. So I teach that in the course, but really you're just kind of like reaching out to landlords. Like, you're reaching out to landlords and seeing, hey, are you open to this? Because you, like I said before, you'd be surprised. Some people like to go specifically with like apartment complexes and see if they do corporate leases, meaning they'll let you lease the property, but they know you're not the one who's going to be staying there. And then some people like to do private landlords. I do a mix of both, but I love private landlords because usually, in my experience, they can often be more flexible. The only thing is with an apartment complex, like, you have all these different amenities. There are lots of pros because you've got, they've got a maintenance team. Like when something goes wrong, you can easily call them, put in a request. Someone's usually going to come the same day. There are some, depending on the apartment complex itself, they've got like nice amenities like a pool and all that good stuff. The only challenge is that if you're new, it may be more challenging to get into that property. I show you how to do it though. With private landlords, the pros are they're more flexible, they just may be easier to work with. The thing is, you just have to choose your private landlord well, because not all landlords are created equal. So if this is just a slumlord and you can't get any maintenance done, or they don't take care of their property, I'm sure all of us have rented an apartment before where maybe they weren't a slumlord, but maybe they just weren't a very proactive landlord. So you have to make sure you do your research and your due diligence, even with that. So that's basically how you do it though. Just found my first place. Congratulations, Kevin Ortega Joss. I'm so bad, sorry, but congratulations, that's super dope. All right, good afternoon, checking in. Thank you for checking in, Exquisite. Yes, okay, you're gonna have 6 Airbnbs by the end of the year. Heck yeah. Yes, I love that. Drop your goals, everybody. Like, what do you want to do with Airbnb? So first I asked, where do you want to host? Do you want to host in your own city, or do you want to host remotely? And I love Kevin's idea. Post your goals, like how many Airbnbs do you want to have by the end of the year, or how many Airbnbs do you want to have in a year's time? Okay, so the next way that when I started leasing, actually, so I did it in my apartment first, and then when I ended that lease, I let them know, hey, this is what I've been doing, can I continue? And they were like, okay, sure. That was 2014. I really didn't know the ins and outs of things. I was just kind of winging it. But of course, with experience, I was able to do more. So the next thing I did was I went out and actually the next one that I did full time, I co-hosted, and I didn't even realize that I was co-hosting at the time. So I happened to have a girlfriend who owned a 4-unit building in the city, like Boss Babe Moves, right? So she owned this 4-unit rental property, and she was self-managed. She was a private landlord, but she had a whole nother job, right? Like, this was not her main thing. She had a full-time career. So she had a unit in that 4-unit building that she was having trouble renting because, she's a private landlord. She doesn't have a property manager. It's not her full-time thing. And so it had been vacant for a couple months, and she was like, "Ooh, this is not cute." So I told her, I was like, well, hey, I've been doing this Airbnb thing. Do you want to partner up on it? I'll handle all of the Airbnb work, and we'll partner on this. So that was my first co-hosting. She was like, okay, cool, this sounds good. So as a co-host, you're doing exactly that. You're hosting someone else's property for them on Airbnb, and then you and the owner decide on what your fee is going to be. And your fee is the way that you get paid is you get a percentage of every single booking that comes in. So she and I agreed on what my fee would be, and every booking that came in, I got that percentage, right? So if it was $100 booking and my fee was, just for example, $15%, that's right? $15. I'm horrible at math. I went to law school for a reason. I didn't go to medical school. But anyway, so that is how you co-host. You find an owner who's willing to let you host their property for them on Airbnb for a fee. And so this is how I started to grow and got to 20 units, because I rented a couple. That's how I first started. I was renting a few. The landlord who I had a great business relationship with was like, hey, I have another unit that has gone vacant. And it was February. It's one of the worst months as a landlord to find a tenant, because nobody really wants to move when it's brick cold outside, and this is on the East Coast, so it was super dumb cold. And he was like, I'm not finding anybody. Do you want to take this unit? I was like, bet, because the other one was doing great. And so I built from there. I rented a couple, and then I had a few people, because I was in the real estate world, right? So I had been doing if you guys are familiar with wholesaling, I was doing real estate wholesaling for a couple years. I did it through law school as a side hustle. I've always been doing side hustles. So I was doing it in law school on the side in the summertime, and then a little bit even after I graduated. So I would go to these real estate investor meetings. So I knew a couple people, and they were like, oh, what are you doing now? And I just happened to mention I was doing Airbnb. So my next co-host was really great because it was an investor who he flipped properties. He flipped these beautiful properties in the city and would do these full gut renovations. Really cool. And if you guys are familiar with wholesaling, it's a way of getting property without necessarily having it wasn't listed on the market, right? You got a off the market deal. So you got an off the market deal from a wholesaler. Another wholesaler had renovated the entire thing, sold it for like over $1 million. When I say this place was beautiful, it was gorgeous, right? And then the seller who sold it to him, or the previous owner, was like, oh, just kidding, I didn't really sell it to you, I want the property back. So it was all this drama. So long story short, I know this is kind of a tangent, but this story is kind of juicy. Long story short, he had title insurance when he bought the property. So his title insurance was they were the ones who were required to make sure it had clean title, meaning that they were aware of everyone who had sold this property and it all was good. So he had title insurance. So he was able to have them go through the litigation and figure it all out. But that whole process could take more than a year. Now, his buyer can't buy the property. The person he sold it to for over $1 million cannot actually close on the property. It's basically in limbo. He can't sell it to somebody else. It's in limbo until it's resolved, right? And this whole time, he got a construction loan. He still has a loan on this property. His intention was to flip it, right? So he still has a bill every month. So he was like, bet money, I hear you're doing this Airbnb thing. I need to cover my expenses with this property. So it was actually a 2-unit. It was 4 bedrooms upstairs and then 2 bedrooms downstairs, a fully separate apartment in the basement. So it ended up being 2 units. So I ended up co-hosting for him. Both units did really well. That was more of a luxury Airbnb because it had a rooftop deck in the city, in a really good area of the city, great views of everything. So it was really, really nice. And it had private parking. And again, this is in the city, so parking is the bee's knees, right? You can't always get it, and it's very expensive. So that was the next co-host that I did. Then he's well connected in the real estate world. So he just kind of mentioned me, and I networked with other investors who kind of were in similar situations. And this is where networking is so important, and being a good co-host and being a good tenant are really important, because if people see that you're doing a good job, they're willing to, without you even asking half the time, they're willing to spread the word and introduce you to their network, and then you grow from there. So long story short, I started co-hosting for mad people in the area, and it just grew and grew. And so that is how I was able to go from 0 Airbnbs to 20 in a really short amount of time without having to buy any property. And the beauty of co-hosting is that you don't have the same expenses you would have with master leasing or rental arbitrage, right? You don't have monthly rent. You don't have utility costs. And in terms of getting in, leasing is great because it's less expensive than buying. But you still have to have your first month's rent, your deposit, the money to furnish the property, whether you're using used or new furniture. I show you how to do all of that in the course. I show you how to do it so you don't have to spend $1 bajillion to get set up, right? But those are the expenses. So before I go on to the pros and cons, just remind me that's what I'm going to go on to, the pros and cons of rental arbitrage versus co-hosting. I just want to check the chat and make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay. I'm hoping to do at least one. That's a great goal, right? So just doing one, because once you do one, You'll learn the process. Like, yes, you learn the process in the course, but there's nothing like having your own Airbnb, seeing what guests are going to ask you, seeing what people are interested in your local area, whether you're doing like technically your local area or you're hosting remotely. Like, you're going to find out, even if you're hosting remotely, let's say you live in California, but you're hosting in Houston, you're going to find out once you have that property under your belt, what do people want to know about Houston? Like, what's a big thing? Are they asking about parking? Are they asking about XYZ? So, once you have one under your belt, you kind of learn the true process, because there's no better teacher than experience. I teach you everything I know in the course and walk you through everything. But once you have that unit, then you're going to be like, oh, okay, this is what she actually meant. This is like what I need to experience. And then you can document things so that you can start to automate things as well. All right. I'm glad you like the information. I'm all about the encouragement. Okay. Yes, Kevin, everyone's hoping God blesses you with your goal. I see it for you. You got to claim it, right? You got to speak it into existence. 4 in a year's time. That's dope. I am not 2, I think. Hopefully. Okay, let's see. So where do you post or let people know you do Airbnb? That's a really good question. So the beautiful thing is about that Airbnb does a great job of it's kind of a marketing platform anyway. So Airbnb itself is a great place to, of course, list your property. That's what we're talking about. The thing is, when you list, you want to make sure that you list in a way that's going to get you ranked high on the page. So when someone's looking for your specific city and then start like narrowing down to, let's say, your specific neighborhood, you want your property to be one of the first ones that comes up. And so I show you how to make sure that what you put in your listing is going to have you ranked higher on the page, right? It's just like anything else. Like, you want to be like, when you go on Google, right? You don't really go through page 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. You go to page 1, maybe page 2, but really you want to be on that first page. So I show you how to do that. So that's number 1, like just listing your property correctly on Airbnb. And then I show you how to actually use social media as well, because everyone's on social media. Everyone looks for everything on social media. So that's a great way. And then I show you how to actually get direct bookings as well. And so what I mean by direct bookings is you're going to set up your own website where people can go and book your property directly, which means you don't have to pay any fees, because Airbnb is not free. They're not doing it out of the goodness out of their heart. It's free to list, it's free to do everything, but once someone books, they take a percentage of that booking, right? It's about 3%. So when you do a direct booking, you get all the money, right? There are pros and cons to doing that, but those are some of the ways that you can market your listing, your short-term rental, because it's really short-term rentals. Even though we all say Airbnb, short-term rentals have been around for years. But, Airbnb is really the biggest platform right now. VRBO is another big one. They merged recently with HomeAway. Booking.com, people put their properties on there as well. So there are so many ways to market. Cool. Okay, so if you just joined recently, I really like, I was asking, where do you want to host? Do you want to host locally, or do you want to host remotely in another location? And then Kevin had a great comment. What's your goal? Like, how many Airbnbs do you want to have in the next couple months or in the next year? So go ahead and drop that in the chat. Cool. Oh, thank you for the badge, Kevin. Woo. So yes, guys, you can buy a badge if you are enjoying the information I'm sharing. I love all the badge love. It's so exciting every time. So thank you so much, Kevin. How was wholesaling? Oh, wholesaling was cool. Wholesaling was good. Like, years ago, I was like, I'm going to do a wholesaling course, but I always say, like, teach a course in something you're really passionate about. And I did like wholesaling because I made some good money doing it. And sometimes I'm like, maybe I'll go back to it, but I just really enjoy Airbnb a lot more. But wholesaling, for those of you who don't know, how do I explain wholesaling? Wholesaling is basically when you go out and you find a motivated seller, a seller who, for whatever reason, may or may not be able to really list their property the traditional way with a realtor. Maybe they owe too much, or they need to move really quickly and they can't wait for the whole 30 to 45 days that it takes. Maybe they're not willing to do the repairs that is required to list on the traditional market. So you go and you find that property, you put it under contract. For, let's say you put it under contract for $100,000, so it's less. It only works if it's less than the after repair value. That's ARV. So let's say you put it under contract for $100,000, and that's, let's say that's 75% ARV, right? And then you sell it to like a rehabber or someone who's going to fix and flip it, or someone who's going to buy and hold it. You sell it to them for or you assign that contract rather to them for $110,000. So your assignment fee is that $10,000 difference between what you had it under contract for and what you assigned the contract. You didn't sell it to the person. You assigned the contract to that rehabber, and your fee was $10,000. So that's wholesaling. There's a lot more that goes into it, but that's it in a nutshell. It's really all about finding those motivated sellers and making sure you have good negotiation skills to get it under contract at the right price. So yeah, but there are mad people who teach wholesaling. They teach it really well. So I, for now, love my Airbnb zone. Airbnb, and then teaching people how to create their own course is my next venture. How many of you guys want to learn how to create your own course? I kind of have it like ready to go, but I have a business mentor and he's like, you're not allowed to, or you shouldn't, not that you're not allowed. He's like, you should not go on to create this whole new course until you hit a certain benchmark with your current course. I'm like, oh, that makes sense, but I want to do what I want to do. So, oh, thank you. Thank you for being proud of me, Black Egypt. I think you were talking to me, but thank you. Hello, will this be saved? Yes, I will do my best to save it. I've had good luck with saving my lives to IGTV. 0 to 20 real quick. Yes, I mean, it kind of really happened like that. Like it was slow, not slow, but it was like normal pace. And then it was like everybody and their mother was like, can you host my Airbnb for me? That is actually, honestly, that is how I started this course, because I was just like, this is not sustainable for me, because I did not want to, I don't host 20 Airbnbs anymore. I'll be very frank, because personally, I didn't want that to be my business. There are mad people, and I actually have a property manager for my Airbnbs now. That is her business. She is a full-on, full-time co-host. She has a whole team, a whole business, like a legit company just for that business. And that is the direction I was going in. That is kind of where I was, but it's just not what I want. It wasn't what I wanted to be doing. But for a lot of people, that's a whole business model. You can make mad money doing it. I worked for a startup company, there's a lot of startup money and financial institutional money in the short-term rental game. And so I worked for a startup that they had at the time, this is 2019, they had over 1,000 short-term rentals between, where were they? They were in LA, San Francisco, the DC area, so DC, Maryland, Virginia, and they had just opened New York at the time. And so that was their entire business model, is they're taking other people's properties and listing them. They were kind of doing more of the midterm stays, so over 30 days versus traditional short term. But there are people who that is their entire business model, and they make mad money doing it. So if that's something you want to do, that is the whole co-hosting or even master leasing method. You can just blow it up as big as you want it to be. Do I need to lease an apartment first? It depends on whether you want to master lease or co-host. So if you want a master lease, then yes, you need to have an apartment. You have to have a place. But if you decide you want to co-host, then no, you don't have to lease. You just have to work with that owner to be able to host their property for them. For them on Airbnb. Also, you can use what you have. The way I started, I was using the place I lived, Oh, and I didn't say this. I was doing it part-time, like when I would travel, but then I was laid off. And so I needed money. So I would then, I just did a room in my apartment full time. Like I just would host this room on Airbnb and I would have guests. And like I said, not everyone's comfortable doing that. I put in security measures. I teach you how to do that in the course, because I know for a lot of people that might be the way you're starting. Like maybe you can't go out and get a lease for whatever reason. Maybe you haven't been able, even though I teach you how to do this in the program, maybe you haven't yet found an owner to let you co-host, but maybe you've got a basement and you've got a lock and you are comfortable and maybe you just need to make the money. So yes, you that's how you can get started. No, COVID is not hurting at all. No, it's not. I mean, I'll be honest, like when COVID first hit, like March 2020, the first 2 weeks it was a bloodbath, because we were like, what's happening? And Airbnb like refunded mad guests, rightfully so. A lot of hosts are still very bitter over it, but what are you gonna do? They can't come. But then fortunately, like I said, I've been in the game for a while. We pivoted very quickly to attracting travel nurses, staycationers, transitioners, people who got stuck during restrictions, during lockdowns, and either they didn't want to live where they were still living, or maybe they had just moved to the city and they didn't know what was going on with the lockdown, so they didn't want to sign a 12-month lease. I had a lady stay with me in one of my Airbnbs. She would just renew it every like couple of weeks. She stayed with me from April 2020 or maybe March 2020 until October 2020, when she like decided where she wanted to live. So that's a whole nother demographic of people who use Airbnb, because they can show up, it's furnished, it's in the location they want it to be in without having to sign a 12-month lease, go find furniture. Then they find out they got to move in like 6 months or 12 months. So it gives people more flexibility. Okay, I manage 30 Airbnbs for a big company and we are never vacant. That's super dope, Kevin. Yeah, these people were never vacant either. Like this company that I worked for, they were, raking it in. Is it easy to be accepted by an apartment complex? It depends. It depends on a lot of things. That's going to depend on how well you negotiate, how well you present yourself. Do you already have a business? Are you signing up in your, in your LLC? Are you willing to do a personal guarantee if they don't allow you to do it on your credit? So there are so many things that's going to depend on. I always say you should try, because you don't know until you try. And I show you what to say to them and how to present yourself in the course. Hey, Alchemist. Hey. I don't know if you're still here, but thank you for joining. All right. 3 apartments is super doable. Yeah. People should buy at least $1 badge when they're getting some good. Oh, Kevin, you're such a good friend, follower. Thank you, Black Egypt. I appreciate you guys. I think I'm behind on these comments. Goal. Okay. Net for best. Your goal is 3 by the end of the year. Learn the skills needed to teach your child to host her own Airbnb when she gets to college in 2 years. Yes, can we give it up for that goal? That is a dope goal. Yes. Okay. So thank you, Black Egypt. Okay. Good job. That's lit and very smart. It is. Okay, using everything learned, working for them to start. Yeah, I will say, like I said, I had started Airbnb before I worked for that company, but seeing someone do it on such a large, or seeing a company do it on such a large scale, I learned so much about making sure you have efficient processes, right? Because you cannot scale if you're just doing everything by yourself, or you don't have any sort of automation in place. You don't have a process of how you're checking people in, or even sending them check-in instructions. I say this all the time. People don't read because how many of you guys have been on vacation, or you're going on vacation and you booked the hotel or the Airbnb, but you don't look at any of the information till like the day of or right before you're supposed to check in. I don't know if it's just me, but I have done that. And a lot of people do that. So like you want to send them their check-in instructions a couple days before they check in, the day they're checking in, right? Like you just want to anticipate those questions that people are going to have, and you want to make sure that your instructions are so clear that they don't even have questions. They look at it and they're like, oh, bet I go here to get the key, or this is the automated code, this is how it works, I park over here, this is how I get to the park, like all that stuff. You want to have it and working for that bigger company, I put a lot of those things that I learned into this program, right? Because you just, everything that you learn that's going to improve your process, I wanted to share that with everyone who takes my course as well. All right, cool. Do you happen to have pay stubs to get approved for the Airbnb? So whatever your landlord is requiring is what you're going to have. So most landlords, yeah, they will probably require proof of income. So, you know, that's going to be your pay stubs, your W-2s. If you're self-employed, it might be the last year or two of taxes, whatever the case may be. At the time, when one of the last places that I did, I actually used my Airbnb income printout, and I was like, this is what I'm doing. This is how much money I'm making. So again, with the private landlords, a lot of times they're more flexible, but you might even be surprised with some of these apartment complexes. They're just like, we need to see that you have money coming in, right? So yeah, what's a good percentage to suggest to the landlord? So the standard that I've seen is anywhere between 15 and 20%. I've gone as high as 30, but that was for like really luxury building where I'm doing a lot more work. Do you have business outline that I can use when I go meet? So yes, in the course, I do have a full landlord presentation letter and an owner presentation letter showing you exactly what you can present to them. I have the scripts for you on what to say, whether you're reaching out to them by phone or in person, what to do once you get on an appointment, what to actually look for in the property, right? Because I know like you can get so excited when you finally are like on an appointment. Someone was willing to talk to you. Someone was willing to entertain this Airbnb thing, but you have to keep your wits about you and not just rent any old place, because you don't want to be in this lease for 12 months or 6 months or however long you decide, and it's just a horrible apartment. Like it's a horrible, and it could be a house. You could rent anything, but it's just horrible. Like you want to make sure that you're looking at the checklist I provide on what to look for to make sure that this is going to work for Airbnb, right? Because yeah, you just don't want to be stuck. And I've experienced it. Like I said, I've hosted over 20. I've experienced where I didn't do my due diligence as well as I could have. And this apartment complex, and it was an apartment complex. It wasn't a private landlord either. They just were not great. Like they just were not great. This is years ago. So I put all that into the course. Like every mistake I have made, you know, that I learned from and improved on, I put in the course, so hopefully you don't have to go through that. Okay, okay, I think I answered that question. We send check-in instructions several times. Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So true, Platinum Realty Global. Yeah, people don't read. And so I send my check-in instructions several times. I send checkout instructions a couple times, not in an annoying way, but I make sure to send them like the night before because, you know, give people time to like kind of look at it, see what they really need to do, and make sure they know that I'm serious. Checkout is at 11 a.m. Don't be, you know, my people gonna be there, my cleaner's gonna be there. Just kind of dropping these little hints that they need to get out on time. So that's pretty much it, guys. Do you have any other questions? Oh, so the course is 75% off right now. It's the BNB from Scratch method. You can get it 75% off. You can pay in full. It is $597, but you can also do my payment plan, 4 payments of $180, or you can start for $0 up front if you use PayPal Pay Later, and that's $0 for 6 months and no interest during that 6 months. and you get full access to the entire program. So you can start that way. If that's not really where you're at right now, I also have my Airbnb ebook bundle. So it's my Airbnb ebook and the Travel Nurse Hosting ebook bundled together with a couple other little bonuses. And that is $37, and you can get that with the link in my bio as well. And then I always forget to talk about this, but I have a whole course on travel nurse hosting. And so if you already have an Airbnb, or maybe you have a rental property and you've kind of been interested in hosting travel nurses, like how to find them, how to attract them to your property, how to book them, and actually how to manage hosting them, I have that as well. It's the travel nurse, what is it called? The travel nurse hosting system. It's just, if you go to the link in my bio, it just says travel nurse hosting course or something like that. Real basic. Like, I try not to make it too complicated. But all of that is in the link in my bio. Okay, so is my Airbnb course a lifetime course? Yes, you get access forever. Basically, it's a lifetime program. So yes, you have access. You can go back to it. You can watch it as many times as you want. If I were to ever change platforms, because it's hosted on a platform, like I changed platforms earlier this year. Everyone who had the course on my old platform got access to the new one. I upgraded the course. I updated it about 3-4 months ago. Everyone who had the old version got the new version as well. So once you are a member of the program, you have access to it for life. Any upgrades that I make to it, you get automatic access to it. If you paid a lot less for it before, you just are lucky and you get the upgrades, because I'm not gonna be like, oh, you have to pay the difference. That would be silly. So yes, that's that. The course is $597. But again, you can do 4 payments of $180, or you can start for $0 upfront if you use PayPal Pay Later, and that's no payments and no interest for 6 months. So I love that option for people, because you're able to get full access to the program, so you can learn all that you need to know. You can reach out to owners and landlords, get your property, set it up, learn all that it takes to host your particular property, learn the processes, and then document it and start automating it. And you can do that way before the 6 months, right? So you can make payments during that 6 months anytime you want, but you don't have to make any payments for 6 months, and there's no interest. Okay. Thank you guys so much. I'm glad hopefully this was helpful. I'm going to try to go live a lot more often. My goal is to do 30 days of lives. I don't know what I'm going to talk about for 30 days, but I think, so in terms of like learning how to create your own course, there's also learning how to market your own course and like really putting yourself out there, because people are not going to purchase from you unless they know who you are, right? So just getting more comfortable with coming on lives and sharing good information. So thank you guys so much. Thank you for everyone who bought a badge. Let me see. I think I can view. So yes, thank you, Black Egypt. Thank you, King Pops. Yes. Oh, I think you have the dope popcorn. I think. I could be wrong. But anyway, yes, thank you. And thank you, Kevin. Thank you all so much for joining the live. And I will be sure to save it. And DM me if you have any other questions. And you can get access to all my programs by clicking the link in my bio. Okay, guys. Bye. Bye. Oh, wait. Did I miss questions? Oh, how many units is good to get started? Oh, that's going to depend on you. I always say start with 1, maybe 2, because you don't want to overwhelm yourself. You want to learn the process, especially if you've never done anything like it before. You just really want to learn the process. I say maybe 2 just because some apartment complexes, or even landlords, if they have multiple units that are vacant, they may be more willing to work with you if you're like, oh, I'm going to take down 2 of your apartments or 3 of your apartments. So that is one pro to doing more. All right. Corporate lease or buy property. I kind of answered that a little bit earlier, but it's going to depend on where you are financially. Like, do you have the funds to buy? If you can buy, I always say buy, but just make sure you have multiple exit strategies. So in my opinion, when you're buying, you want to make sure that, okay, it works for Airbnb, but if there's ever anything that goes on in the market, make sure it still works for traditional rentals, right? Like, don't only buy it because, Airbnb is usually 3 to 5 times what you'll get as a traditional rental. You don't want to buy it with only those numbers. Like, okay, I can make this work and make a profit only if I'm doing Airbnb for the rest of the time that I have this property, right? So you just want to make sure you have other exit strategies. I could sell this property for a profit. I could rent it for a profit, XYZ. Okay, now I'm really going to get off. Thank you guys again for joining, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.